You know, I really didn't think about it at the time, but in hindsight, my middle school years were pretty interesting. Don't worry, I'm not about to lay myself down on a therapy couch in front of y'all and spill my guts. What's interesting to me here was being a kid, not even old enough to drive, during a time where the social aspects of the world as we knew it would undergo a big shift. YouTube launched in 2005 and got bought out by Google in 2006. With the introduction of YouTube and the internet came the introduction of social networking sites like MySpace. Cell phone technology wasn't the same after Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone in 2007. The sudden ubiquity of all these era-defining things allowed deeper relationships and connections to form a lot easier. The size of the opportunity to have that kind of thing grew from a one-way lane to an interstate highway going both ways. And try to think about this from a kid's perspective. In middle school, we're just starting to gain a sense of ourselves and the world around us. And when my generation discovered what we could do with all of this technology that was new to us and probably everyone else, the idea of fiddling with it was exciting. Now, given that a kid has the same privileges that I did, it's no wonder what they'd feel like whenever they look at the world around them for the first time. But for my generation specifically, it felt like the world that was in front of us was a world that absolutely no one had seen before. And in a way, it almost felt like this world was built for us. And while I was wide-eyed about all of the tech in front of me, I think I enjoyed the real-life moments that the technology made and augmented a lot more. The only time I used to see my friends was when we were in school, but now we finally have the chance to fully be ourselves around each other after 3 or 3:30 p.m. Where I started getting an idea of what was going on were the dances in the school's cafeteria. I know it's corny talk coming from a musician, but just hear me out here. There's just something about being in the moment made by the music and being with your friends that you now got to know a lot better than you ever did before. And if you were on the outside looking in and did like a 360 photo with one of those fancy cameras, I feel like there'd be something unspoken about that pic that just hits, you know? And it would be one thing if the music that we were listening to were just, popular songs of varying topic, but what made it special for us, I feel, was that on top of the popular songs of varying topic, we were listening to a kind of music that lent itself really well to these moments that I'm talking about. And in Texas, it just so happened to be popular at the time. Atlanta snap music. Yeah, middle school isn't the topic of this video. Atlanta snap music is. Almost every student in Central Middle School would be leaning with it and rocking with it to them franchise boys in D4L. We'd all be revving imaginary motorcycles to Young Jock. All of us would be front and center on that dance floor cranking that Soulja Boy and the slew of other things after that song's success. My friends and I just thought the songs were cool because of the dances, but they were immensely popular outside of our little bubbles. All those artists I just mentioned saw spots in the Billboard Top 10 and sales certifications up to triple platinum. And with social proof like that, you would expect snap music to not seem like such a small blip in the history of hip hop. And on top of that, snap music is a product of Atlanta, which is one of the cities that define more than a little bit of Southern hip hop culture. Every now and then I think about these things and my mind just keeps rerouting itself to dancing around two questions. One, why doesn't anyone talk about it now? And two, should we start talking about it again? Now, the jury's still out on the first question, but my answer to the second question is sure, why not? But before I get into it, I should probably preface the rest of this video by saying that I am just a musician who loves learning about the history of the music that I grew up with and sharing it, alongside my thoughts, to other folks. This video is by no means a comprehensive or exhaustive coverage of Atlanta snap music, and this is not an unbiased news article. Moving on. Often regarded as Atlanta's counter-argument to its own aggressively fun and cathartic crunk movement, snap music found its purpose in the lighter side of song and dance. Coined after its notable replacement of a snare drum with a finger snap, we saw a run of mainstream snap music from 2005 to around 2008 and 2009. Before it took over airwaves and cafeterias after dark, it started in Bankhead, a neighborhood that got its name from a stretch of US Route 78 that runs through Atlanta. It was always called the Bankhead Highway until the Atlanta City Council renamed it after the civil rights activist Donald Lee Hollowell. And though the roads have a new name, the name of the neighborhood remains unchanged. If you're a hip-hop head like me and feel like you've heard the word Bankhead prior to Atlanta Snap, then you'd be right. In 1995, rappers Diamond and D-Rock, who would later become one half of the Yin Yang Twins, created a song and dance called the Bankhead Bounce. It made waves big enough to catch the attention of Michael Jackson, who incorporated the dance move into his choreography during his performance at the MTV Music Awards that same year. The neighborhood can also stake its claim in trap music. Bankhead's biggest alumnus might be the rapper T.I., who, alongside DJ Toomp and David Banner, pioneered the subgenre into popularity before crunk and snap music got on the radio. Now, I just said that Atlanta Snap started in Bankhead, but what if I told you that we could zoom in even further than just a neighborhood in West Atlanta to pinpoint the music's origin? Atlanta Snap music was birthed at the Pool Palace, an indistinct club a stone's throw away from the highway. In it, fledgling acts honed their craft in search of their big break, and on the other side of the stage, patrons sought to break free of the monotony that resulted in going to all of the other clubs that spun the same mainstream music. And every now and then, these two elements would come together and bring a little spark to Atlanta's nightlife. The perfect record got everyone going, but how do you dance to it? Nearly every club goer looked towards the two dance crews that took residence in the Pool Palace for the answer. The Flow Masters and the Snap Boys created the 1-2 snap that served as the visual epicenter for the music, and from then on, any record that got a cosign from the crowd received a dance to go along with it. Unfortunately, the Pool Palace closed down sometime after January 2013. I don't know when a Google vehicle passed by that place last, but as of February 23, 2023, a restaurant takes its place. But while everyone is in agreement about its origins, there's an enigma behind who started it. At the height of the subgenre's popularity, Vibe magazine uncovered a beef between D4L and Dem Franchise Boys, two rap quartets who were on the front lines of Atlanta Snap scene, about who started it in their June 2006 issue. D4L and Dem Franchise Boys, or DFB for short, were experiencing their successes at roughly the same time with their respective singles Laffy Taffy and Lean With It Rock With It. And to further complicate things, D4L and DFB weren't the only parties involved. DJ T-Rock, one of the resident DJs at the Pool Palace, claimed neither group started it and that a rapper named K-Rab was making snap music long before they did. K-Rab stands by this claim. D4L claims that they've worked together, and DFB's in-house producer claims that K-Rab was the first person to mentor him when he first started producing. So where does that leave our answer behind who? Shots were fired and names were called without an answer getting excavated. But if I had to propose a consensus like the author of the Vibe article did, I'd switch it up a bit and say that K-Rab and D4L created the sound together, while Dem Franchise Boys were more or less ambassadors. The big thing at play here was a cosign from none other than Jermaine Dupri, who signed DFB to his imprint So Def around late 2005, early 2006. Prior to DFB, Jermaine had his name on a bunch of hits. Burn, Confessions Part 2, My Boo, We Belong Together, Don't Forget About Us, Let Me Hold You, Like You, and Grills, to name a few. You could not escape Jermaine's signature, yeah, I know what this is, if you tried for a hot minute. Under So Def, Dem Franchise Boys released a remix of their song I Think They Like Me as a lead single for On Top of Our Game in August 2005, which went gold. After that came Lean With It Rock With It in January 2006, which went platinum later that year. They also teamed up with the metal band Scorn to mash up their song Coming Undone with Lean With It Rock With It, and it served as an official remix for both songs. It released on America Online in April 2006, and if anyone has a copy of it uploaded anywhere, go check it out. It's a hoot. There were also plans to release their own line of extra large white tees so you could look like DFB when you was leaning with it and or rocking with it. And on top of that, they got more publicity about their contribution to snap music than D4L did. Even in that Vibe article, the only article about snap music that I could find, DFB was put in the protagonist spotlight.
I say all this to say that there is ample reason to give dem franchise boys the ambassador title in my head. Even though Lean With It Rock With It didn't outperform D4L's Laffy Taffy as a single, DFB definitely rode the marketing wave harder than D4L did. Pouring all that effort into the single translated into better first week album sales for On Top of Our Game compared to Down for Life, the parent album to D4L's Laffy Taffy. But the reason why I say more or less though is because whenever you listen to On Top of Our Game, the only Snap record on that album is Lean With It Rock With It. Now, a whole album full of Snap music might not have slid, so I can understand wanting to switch it up a little bit. But when you take a look at one Lean With It Rock With It compared to the 5 Snap records on D4L's album, you would think that ambassadors of Atlanta Snap music would do more than just one Snap song on their own record. Blah, 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 blah. Dem franchise boys did a record with Monica called Every Time the Beat Drop, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, let's get back on topic. If you were to ask me why Atlanta Snap got so popular, I could only offer you a few speculations. On the side of the artists and labels, you have a strong case of marketability. DFB, D4L, K-Rab, and Jermaine Dupri weren't the only ones making Snap music. Lil Jon, one of the biggest faces of the crunk movement, was fresh off of the hype and popularity of his song Get Low. Now, I could talk about crunk music and exactly how popular Get Low was, but just in an attempt to keep things moving, if you know, you know. He infused the sonic aesthetics of crunk and Snap music to create Snap Yo Fingers and even signed K-Rab to his imprint BME Recordings. Now, Snap Yo Fingers was only a promo single and no K-Rab album came from that venture, but we did see a single release paying homage to the Pool Palace. And in addition to star power, Snap music was more than its songs. There were also dances, vocabulary, fashion. Whenever I was witnessing crunk and Snap music at the same time, it felt to me that the music was only part of a world within a world. And with all those things that I mentioned earlier in the mix, I would think that Atlanta Snap has some pretty good marketing potential, if not a good starting point. The introduction of the Master Tone in 2004 allowed cell phone users to play a customized sound as their ringtone. This would be a fun novelty and a go-to accessory for people trying to personalize their phones, especially the people who would be buying or receiving their first cell phones, like grade school students. In fact, Laffy Taffy was one of the most popular ringtones, crowning the song and D4L as big parts of ringtone rap, a byproduct of Snap music. And while cell phones were evolving, something else would turn the internet completely on its head. The introduction of online sales and digital marketplaces like Apple's iTunes Store significantly beefed up numbers for these artists as well. In the months following Laffy Taffy's release, 700,000 sales of that song were credited to purchase downloads. And in January 2008, Interscope Records announced that Crank Dat Soulja Boy sold over 3 million digital copies, the first of its kind to do so. On top of that, Snap music's rhythmic momentum, its bounce, lent itself to genre crossovers pretty well. Shawties would snap to T-Pain's Buy You a Drink, Bow Wow would brag about how you can never find another shorty like mine, Neo would be praising independent women with She Got Her Own, and Cherish would do it to it. On the consumer side, the slew of dances that came with the songs made it accessible to everyone. Revving an imaginary motorcycle to Young Jock's Going Down was easy. You could argue that Leanin' With It and Rockin' With It is the next level up from a two-step. And even though songs like Laffy Taffy and Snap Yo Fingers didn't come with a dance, it isn't hard to imagine what everyone else was doing. Hell, half of the hype behind Crank Dat Soulja Boy was the dance itself. I even learned how to do the dance from the complimentary instructional video that got uploaded onto YouTube. It's essentially a line dance, but each step came with their own names, like the Roosevelt, the Motorbike, the Superman, and the Super Soaker. Giving these individual steps names allowed folks to come up with Crank Dat dances of their own. And Crank Dat they did. Soulja Boy's success behooved a lot of other artists to ride that Crank Dat wave. You could also crank that Batman, crank that Yank, crank that Spider-Man, alongside a whole bunch of other things. But with all of these things happening that could cement Atlanta Snap music into a better place than it is now, it's still a blip. And if you were to ask me why, I would probably posit that Atlanta Snap music stuck out like a discolored sore thumb and people sniffed that out very, very quickly. Because whenever you compare snap music to other hip-hop releases of the same years, you would start to notice more than a couple of stark differences. Alongside D4L's Down to Life album was 50 Cent's The Massacre, Ye's Late Registration, and The Game's The Documentary. Dem Franchise Boys' sophomore album, On Top of Our Game, was competing with Jay-Z's Kingdom Come, The Game's Doctor's Advocate, and Nas's Hip Hop Is Dead. Other rappers from different scenes in Atlanta beat it out too. And in speaking of hip hop being dead, there were a lot of hip hop artists that sided with music critics that disliked the music. One of the most notable disapprovals came from Wu-Tang Clan's Ghostface Killah, who took aim at the song Laffy Taffy specifically in his song The Champ. One of the most vehement disapprovals came from Papoose and DJ K Slay.
This is motherfucking New York, man. If I see a New York nigga in a fucking club going like this, you know what I'm saying? I smack the shit out of you, man. This is fucking New York. This is New York. Bring it back to New York. What's going on, man? Make some motherfucking noise.
One of the most iconic disapprovals came from Nas, lambasting its quality by dint of releasing a lead single and album called Hip Hop Is Dead. I have some opinions about how that played out, but maybe that's for a blog post or a Twitter thread, or, you know, maybe I should shut the fuck up about it because I want to meet my heroes one day. And lest we forget Andre 3000's verse on the remix to Unk's Walk It Out whenever it became popular. Though, funnily enough, I don't remember Walk It Out getting any blowback. If I'm faced with the question of whether or not the reaction from contemporaries was appropriate, hot take, I'd say that it wasn't. My general opinion is that, like a lot of other things in life, people disliked what they weren't used to, and a lot of folks made things bigger than they seemed. Not to attack the old heads here, but yeah. When I think about other hip-hop subgenres that have had their spotlight roughly around the same time, the more I think snap music artists just got the short end of the stick. For example, whenever the Bay Area Hyphy movement went mainstream with E40, who is a legend in his own right, that moment came and went without any blowback. Hell, the Hyphy movement even had their own dance moves. People were going dumb and doing the thizzle dance. Where Atlanta Snap had part of its branding in fashion, the Bay Area had its parallel in cars. Just as there was diversity in clothing, from Dem Franchise Boys' jeans and a white tee combo to Fabo from D4L's flashy colored outfits, you could find a wide array of muscle cars with Hyphy artists rapping about those things with just as much confidence. And on the business side, these two scenes had one thing in common. Lil Jon also signed E40 to his BME imprint and produced the single Tell Me When to Go, which put the Bay Area and the Hyphy movement into the national spotlight, at least for the aughts. The album My Ghetto Report Card, the album that Tell Me When to Go is on, absolutely slaps. Go check it out when you can. But anyway, yeah, whenever this topic comes up, I always wonder if the Hyphy movement would have received the same fate as Atlanta Snap music if E40 was not in the role that he was in. And I want to clarify, I'm not asking these questions to bash anyone or take credibility away from anyone. This is all just coming from a point of pure studious curiosity. And in the spirit of being both studious and curious, why didn't we maintain that same level of criticism that we had with Laffy Taffy, Lean With It, Rock With It, Crank That Soulja Boy, and all those other records like that when Chicken Noodle Soup came out? Was it because it was billed as something for the kids? Was it because it came from New York City, because it came out of Harlem? I don't know. I think I've just come to peace with not finding answers to these questions. The thing about Atlanta Snap is that, like a slew of other different kinds of music, this music had a purpose. They were just party songs that only cared about letting folks lean, rock, and 1-2 snap their troubles away for like 3 or 4 minutes. They weren't focused on the empirical, lyrical, miracle whip stuff because it would have just killed the vibe. Now, would snap music have stood a better chance if it came out earlier or later? Who's to say? When it did come out, there were other songs outside of hip-hop that embodied the same spirit as snap music did, so I can't say that there wasn't any room for it. Hell, Laffy Taffy and Chris Brown's Run It were on the charts together, as were Young Jock's It's Going Down and Shakira's Hips Don't Lie. The one thing I am happy to see, however, is different genres of the same spirit finding each other. About a year ago, the EDM producer A-Craze sampled Cherish's Do It To It in a song of the same title. That song made its rounds on DJ sets and TikTok last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if it still is and will be in the future. There really isn't any profound mark that snap music left on what would succeed it, but who knows? We're entering another era where we're doing the same thing that those before us did, finding new life in the records that we enjoyed in the past by sampling them to make something new. I'd like to believe that snap music will get its second win someday. But setting that aside, I think the huge lesson to take away from this little piece of history is that if you intend to speak on or critique a certain music that isn't your taste, try to think about the context in which that song might thrive the best and try to reconsider your approach using that. You're free to dislike whatever you wish, but you have to understand that sometimes a song might be trying to do a job that doesn't apply to you. Snap music probably left a bad aftertaste in the back of some people's minds, but it'll always remain in our memories and in our hearts. At least the memories and the hearts of those who enjoyed it. Or maybe enjoyed it enough to not care about the quality debate of music yet. Like me in middle school. Well, that's it for this month's video. If you like what you saw, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and click the bell to the right of it to stay notified of every upload. If you want to see more videos like this, you can help me make them by visiting my Patreon page. By pledging, you can gain access to a whole lot of cool stuff, from music downloads to sheet music to an actual video of me making an Atlanta snap beat. And if you want to keep up with me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, or you can join my Discord server. I also do a lot more than just these videos. There are Twitch streams, IRL concerts, music releases, artist playlists. The links to everything are in the description box below. Thank you so much for sticking through all of this. And until next time, drink water and stay dope.